So we've been talking a lot about the heat and the drought conditions here across Texas. You can see from Victoria, Dallas, Houston, Waco, SA, even to Brownsville, we've been dealing with lots of heat and unfortunately not much rain. And since June the 1st, lots of cities are seeing some very large deficits. And how is this active drought and heat affecting the farm life, the agriculture sector across Texas? Let me bring in my friend, Mr. Matt Bochat. He's a extension agent from Victoria, and that's down into South Texas. Mr. Bochat, it's so great to see you. Just tell us, how is the heat and the drought affecting the farmers and ranchers, especially with you all doing you all's farming, and also that we're now starting to do some of the harvesting of some of the crops like the sorghum and the cotton, and soon for corn.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Appreciate you having me on today. Yes, 2022 has been a difficult year to say the least. When we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about crops, so we're talking about harvesting and that kind of thing. And in regards to drought, over 95% of Texas is currently in some type of drought condition, I believe, as far as the U.S. Drought Monitor goes. As of today or yesterday, I believe it came out. As far as harvest goes here, we've completed our corn and grain sorghum harvest. We were able to plant it earlier this year, and those yields are terrible, well below average. And in some cases, they're going to zero out the fields, and they're not even going to be harvested at all. We will begin the cotton harvest here pretty soon, probably in the next week or two, and they're saying that's going to be well below average as well too. So all in all, a pretty poor year agriculturally, and I probably won't get much better unless we get some much needed rainfall, not just in my area, but pretty much across the state of Texas.
And so, Mr. Bochet, and so we was talking, before we did this segment on how, although yes, we're seeing quite a bit of drought here across Texas, but drought conditions are not as bad as what they were back in 1955, and also for the year of 2011, for example, Dallas, I think, saw over 60, even 70 days of 100 degrees heat. So how does the drought conditions now compare back to 2011?
I don't think they compare at all just yet. I mean, we're in better condition than 2011. I would say so far. We're not done with the drought. I mean, who knows when it's going to rain again here and substantial rains. I mean, usually this time of the year, we're thinking there might be some tropical activity in the Gulf that will push in, give us some much needed moisture, but we haven't seen that because of the Saharan dust and other things and the high pressure that's been on top of us for so long. So I don't believe it's going to be as bad as 2011, but back then they had total liquidations of cattle. And folks got out of the farming business completely. Things like that are happening. I'm not hearing those kind of things happening just yet. Obviously, inventories of cattle going on the market and folks selling down coal type cows and things. That's currently happening. But I think folks think it's going to rain in September. That's our historic highest rainfall month, and we would just have to see how things play out.
And also another thing, Mr. Bochet, obviously I know you mentioned about tropical systems. Obviously I know Texas sometime, maybe in July, August, and you'll see some kind of weak tropical systems. Just talk about, do farmers and ranchers rely on some of that moisture from tropical season to maybe help out with the growing season to maybe lead to better yields of their crops?
It depends on who you're talking to. Farmers don't want it to rain this time of the year because they want to get in the fields and harvest. But of course, if you're a cattleman, you want it to rain so your grass will grow. You have grazing, you have the ability for hay production and those kinds of things. So it depends on who you talk to. We don't necessarily rely on it, but we hope for it. And this time of the year, usually we get that. I mean, I think we're 5 years out from Hurricane Harvey, which came in, I think, August the 26th, if I'm not mistaken, which was I think a Cat 3 storm that came in close to Rockport, Texas. So we certainly don't want that. That was a disaster on lots of levels for agriculture, for harvest, for cotton, and that kind of things. But a tropical depression, a tropical storm would be much wanted for sure for all the coast of Texas.
And Mr. Bochet, my last question for you. So obviously, if we don't see any significant rain for the rest of this harvesting season, what do you think the outlook's going to be just long range as we maybe go into next year's growing season?
The long range will be hay production. We won't have it. So they're already trucking hay in from other states just to supplement feed the cattle. We usually get 2 to 3 cuttings of hay for cattle here in Texas based on the rainfall year and the climatic conditions that we get. So we're well behind on that. certainly rainfall is going to affect farmers' ability to get into the fields and get those ready again going into next year. And they're already pinched to no end with high inflation, high input costs. They're just trying to break even this year, and then the drought on top of that really makes it difficult. So certainly we need to get the water in the ground and make things productive again.
All right, Mr. Bochat, thank you so much for all your insight about what's ongoing across the agricultural sector, especially into South Texas. We'll be right back with more of your top weather headlines.